Good morning. I hope you had a good night. We're here. I'm going to do a little more introduction of why we're here. Our conference is really to address some issues that are occurring among young children. If you look at this chart, you'll see the United States is at the bottom, towards the bottom of the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. This is a measure of how children's well-being in the countries that belong to this organization. You can see that we're doing poorly in the average ranking across material well-being, health and safety, educational well-being, family and peer relationships, behaviors and risks. If you look at another chart that's measuring disease among, well, actually it's developmental disabilities, but it's from the Centers for Disease Control. And these are statistically significant trends over 4 time periods between 1997 and ending in 2008. And you can see we've got increasing problems in multiple areas for young children. These are the kinds of statistics that worry me and keep me up at night. And what's behind this? Why are we going in this direction instead of in the opposite direction? I take an idea from Randy Olson, filmmaker, former marine biologist. He talks about shifting baselines. And what happens, well, the way he defines what that means is we're not perceiving what has changed. So if you look at the forests, for example, people say, oh, we have more trees than ever in our country. Well, that's maybe true, we have baby trees, right? But if you look at how much we had at the beginning of biodiversity and old-growth forests, you can see we have very little left, much even less than what's apparent here in 1990. If you look at ocean landscapes, which is what Randy Olson focuses on, this is what oceans used to look like, at least the coral reefs. And now many coral reefs look like this, with maybe a few fish in there. That's a little extreme. There may be a few. But we don't notice the shift because it's happening so slowly. Similarly, in our child rearing, we've had a history of really, for example, carrying children and holding them, keeping them with the mother or father or caregiver through the day. And now we treat them differently. We don't hold them very much. They're pretty much in their own carriers or alone someplace. And we've shifted, and it just seems normal now. The 2010 Symposium addressed the developmental niche for human children. And these are the characteristics then that the specialists wrote about in the book that just came out. The book is right there, the only copy that exists at the moment that you can order from the book display later this afternoon. But today, or this symposium, last night, today, and tomorrow, and Sunday, is focusing more on the culture and child rearing as well as well-being. What components are critical for child development, and what happens when they're violated? So our topics we anchor our discussion with some primate heritage. What are propensities there that Frans de Waal discussed last night? Our ancestral environments, represented by hunter-gatherers, small band hunter-gatherers, and the caregiving effects on offspring and caregivers. These are other topics: childhoods today, child maltreatment, and then on Sunday, what do we do about the status quo, this shifting baseline? Last night we heard then about the evolution of empathy in our cousins of all sorts. And we're going to hear then about these other topics: hunter-gatherer childhoods. Barry Hewlett is here to discuss that this morning. Epigenetics. So we have Francis Champagne. Katie Hine is talking about breastfeeding among primates and perhaps other. And the caregiving environment and its effects are discussed by Carlin Lyons-Ruth and Lee Gettler. And then Childhoods Today, we have Peter Gray and Eugene Halton. Child Trauma and Maltreatment, Ruth Lanius and Kristen Valentino. And then on Sunday, we're going to apply what we know to community education and interventions. And we have many local and regional and participants here. Tama Christofen from Purdue Extension, Catherine Kreider, who's a physician in training, former midwife or a midwife, Sue Taylor, who's with WIC locally in the county, Lillian Cannon, who's an entrepreneur, and Samantha Gray from Attachment Parenting International. And we have tonight is Friday. Tonight we have a film, Birth as We Know It, which is quite an amazing film showing many natural births, and then a little contrast with the hospital birth procedures that often happen. Apparently, most births now are traumatic in our country and also in Britain. And Kaylee Lee and Felicia Leon Driscoll will facilitate discussion after the film. So our schedule now is to give each speaker 45 minutes or so to present and have some time for discussion after that. And we have frequent scheduled breaks to encourage conversations among us all to see if we can address these challenging issues we have.